Hello, good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, December 1st. We'll be going through a little lecture, so make sure you guys are watching this and completing all the tasks for today. Um, before we get started with some of the notes, here's Google Classroom. I'm going to show you guys a couple things what we're doing today. Just following this agenda. Your 14-point advertising flag should be turned in before you guys leave. I'm sorry, should be turned in by the end of today. Um, so please make sure that those are turned in. I give it to you guys before Thanksgiving because you had like almost an hour to work on it in class. Um, so make sure those are turned in Google Classroom. You can always take a picture of it if you did it on your own sheet of paper. Take a picture of it and just attach it in Google Classroom and submit it, turn it in. So that should be done. Um, so what you're going to be doing, you're going to be completing the Treaty of Versailles worksheet PDF, which is right here. It's a CAMI. So make a copy for each student. You should each get a copy of this. If you don't know how to do it, there's CAMI instructions that I posted in through here on how to do it, how to download it. If you have any issues, just let me know. But ultimately, we'll be going into really the end part of the war with the Treaty of Versailles. So we'll be doing that. So again, same thing. Make sure that's done and completed. Won't take you long. Um, and then there's some guided notes for you to fill out, and then there's a little like a take-home test or take-home quiz that you're going to be looking at. That will be due by Thursday. So I think so. Again, just make sure that these tasks are done. Um, it should be theoretically in 80 minutes. Should not be a problem. It should take you, I don't know, the 3% worksheet should take you 20, 25. Listen to the video lecture that you're obviously on now. That should take you maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then the rest of the period should be used for the test. You can use your notes on that as well. So without further ado, see if there's any other announcements I need to make. Make sure exit ticket wise. Let's see here. Here's a list of people who are missing things for me, but I'm gonna scroll down really quick. There are people who are absent before break. World War One exit ticket number 2. So here's people who are missing that for me. You'll find that on last week's post. So just make sure that you guys you guys can find that. If you can't find it, let me know. But it won't be on last week's post. It'll be on the week before, the Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure the exact date, maybe the 20th or something like that. So that's where you'll find the exit ticket at. All right, and Ed Puzzle, here's some Ed Puzzle people, some Ed Puzzles for me, right here. And obviously here's people who are missing other assignments for me right here. I'll kind of scroll through that really quick. Obviously you can stop this and write your name down if there's somebody who's missing something for me. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go over really quickly, your lecture notes for today that I told you guys. You should be filling this in your guided notes. All right, so as I said, we covered this before we left for Thanksgiving. Again, towards the end of World War One, they call it the Big Four, but really it's the Big Three. Really, it's Clemenceau, WW1 and U.S. President Woodrow Wilson are really the three main guys who are really in charge of the Paris Peace Conference. Again, think about what the point of that is. It's the four leaders met to discuss what are we going to do with Germany? What's the treaty going to look like? Which is what you guys did with your advertising flags. As I mentioned before, that each of these guys had different ideas and different goals and different wants. So this is not in your guys' notes. Actually, this is in your notes. I'm sorry. So Woodrow Wilson, President Woodrow Wilson, U.S. President during World War I, he developed a 14-point plan for peace. He believed that after World War I, that the world should try to avoid going to war again. That's why they call it the Great War. To the cost of the war in terms of money and human life was just tremendous, and he wanted to make sure that with these 14 points that a war could be avoided in the future. So one of his big points was something called the League of Nations. That was really his 14th point. He believed that we need to create a world organization of world leaders and world countries that would basically form an alliance, essentially, to help promote peace, and then ultimately this group would be like the enforcers to avoid another large-scale war like this from happening again. As you guys did with your advertising flags, one of the other key points of this was to end secret alliances. Again, that's one of the causes for why World War I happened. Think of mania, militarism, alliances, nationalism, imperialism, assassination. Alliances was one of those root causes. Because this country invaded this country, other countries were brought into it because of these secret deals. That'd be something that he believed that needed to end. Other thing, as you guys did in your advertising flags, he believed that the world countries, world leaders, needed to reduce their weapons. Think about how different that was compared to before World War I. Countries were building up their militaries, building up their weaponry. Now they're going to be asked to reduce it, according to him. He also believed to let countries rule themselves. Again, before World War I, you had a few big empires. You had the Ottoman Empire, you had the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and in those empires, you had different nationalities and different ethnic groups, like the Serbians, and you had the Polish, Ukrainians. You had a ton of just different ethnic groups that were being controlled by somebody that was completely different from them. And if you think back to one of the reasons why World War I happened was because you have Gavrilo Princip, a Serbian nationalist, that assassinated Franz Ferdinand because he wanted to unite with the country of Serbia. So you had these little pockets of different ethnic groups that did not want to be ruled by somebody that was different from them. They wanted to join a country or people who were similar to them. So this was one of the big problems with imperialism that he believed that needed to be addressed with the colonies. So which is kind of what I just said, self-determination, allowing these colonies to self-determine themselves. So here's the problem. I'm hoping you guys the light bulb's kind of went off in your head. But I hope you're thinking about Myers. The League of Nations, you said alliances were one of the causes of World War I, so why would you want to create another alliance? Well, bingo. Woodrow Wilson, there were several of these points that a lot of Americans, so again, Woodrow Wilson can't just pass any law he wants. This needed to be approved by Congress and needed to have support of the American people. And he didn't have support on some of his points that he wanted to pass. And ultimately, some of these things did not pass Congress and were unpopular, such as the League of Nations, because it was an alliance, and Americans didn't want to be dragged into another alliance. So the U.S. is not going to join, or is not going to sign the Treaty of Versailles, or Wilson's 14 points, because a lot of the American people in Congress saw alliances as a big problem, and we wanted to remain neutral and not get dragged into another European war. So because we're not going to join the League of Nations, now the League will be developed, but we're not going to. So it's kind of ironic. It was our president's idea, but we're not going to join it. It will be formed, but we're not going to join it because we don't want to be dragged into another war. We want to be involved in an alliance. All right, so kind of going to this as well, George Clemenceau, going into the Paris Peace Conference, this is not in your notes, by the way, he wanted complete revenge. So he was the complete opposite of Woodrow Wilson. Think about why. The war was fought in France. Trench warfare, Western Front, land destroyed. They were the ones invaded by France. By Germany. So he wanted to absolutely triple Germany. And this is, again, the complete opposite of what Woodrow Wilson wanted. This is the second time they've been invaded by France. He wanted to make sure that they would not have the capability of doing it again. So he wanted to punish them with their military. He wanted to weaken their military. He wanted to make them pay for a lot of the war. He wanted to let them lose colonies. So he wanted to absolutely lay the hammer down on them. Because again, war was fought in France, and his country, land, money, resources, men, male power, citizens were absolutely devastated from the war. So his views were completely opposite, and some of his views aren't going to align with what Woodrow Wilson wants. And the same for Great Britain. Great Britain, very similar thing. They spent a ton of money on the war. They had a lot of men who were wounded and killed. The British people wanted to punish Germany. Their big thing was that they were afraid of the spread of communism as well. they wanted to, again, very similarly to France, not quite as severe, but they also wanted to punish Germany as well. Um, so really, Woodrow Wilson kind of went into this meeting, as more of like the mediator, I guess, and you had two of the big countries that played a vital part in the war, who also fought for 4 years involved in the war. We came in at the very end. So, really, Clemenceau and David Lloyd George held a lot of the power because they fought longer in the war, and they spent a ton of money, and a lot more of their land was destroyed compared to us. So they basically held all the cards. All right, so in terms of the treaty, again, this should all for the most part be reviewed from last year from Global. But finally, the treaty will be signed. However, we're not going to sign the treaty because some of the points aren't going to be like for example, the League of Nations that will be created. We're not going to join it or want to join it, so we're not going to sign this treaty. But ultimately, it will be signed by the other powers that will officially end World War I. So here are the terms of the treaty. You need to know this. I think of the acronym BRAT. I know if you had me last year in Global, it should sound very familiar. There's two acronyms that you need to know for this unit. One is MANIA, why World War I happened, and then BRAT is the terms. So BRAT, Germany had to sign this agreement that they were blamed for starting the war. They need to accept all punishments, all blame. Hence, BRAT, be blamed. R, Germany had to pay all the war reparation, which basically means they had to pay money. They had to pay all the war debt. Over $132 billion in war debt. They needed to pay that. By the way, a little factoid for you. They just finished off paying off all their war debt as of 2010. So it's almost 100 years to pay off all this debt. Now, there will be some years under Hitler they're not going to pay it, but it's still a long time. Germany had to reduce their army. Germany must decrease its military. They were only allowed 100,000 men. There should be 100,000 men. I don't know, I messed up here. There should be another zero there. They were only allowed 100,000 men and no tanks in their military. Their navy is only allowed 15,000 men, and they're allowed to have no air force. Again, to keep their military weak. And then finally, Germany lost territory. They lost land. They lost their colonies, and they're not allowed to sign. They're not allowed to align with Austria. They lost all their overseas territories. So here again, that's the terms of BRAT. If you know BRAT, you're good. So really quick, think about this. If you're Germany, and this is what you guys did in your, I guess, Treaty of Versailles assignment. Think about the devastation, the embarrassment that this is going to cause Germany. Again, we talked about this last year in Global. I'm not going to beat the dead horse with it, but ultimately, if you want to understand why the rise of Hitler, some of these extreme viewpoints that people were willing to accept, well, this treaty is a big part of it. This is going to cause a huge economic type of depression in Germany, where people are going to be starving, no jobs. They're going to be suffering for years after this. And Hitler's going to come in and build up German pride, and it's us against the world, and increase nationalism. And he's going to start starting to ignore the treaty, and he's going to take advantage of the fact that a lot of countries, even America and Great Britain and France, they don't want another war to happen again, and they're going to let some things go. And again, we will get to this later on, but this is a big reason why World War II is going to happen. So World War I impact. What's going to happen from this? A lot of the monarchies in Russia, Austria-Hungary, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire are going to crumble. They're going to become more democratic, or the empires are going to break apart. So the era of the European monarchies are going to come to an end for the most part. The rise of the Bolsheviks, the communism. So communism is going to rise in Russia and in other parts of Europe due to the economic impact and the poverty levels within Europe. You're going to see creation of new countries. I'll get to that here in a minute. As I said, the economic impact of World War I is going to be devastating. $280 billion on the economy to build up the lands, to build up cities again. It's going to be devastating. We'll get to that later. And ultimately, guys, one of the biggest impacts is the U.S. is going to become a world leader. Now, why? The war wasn't fought here, guys. We had no land devastation. So while all the European economies are crumbling, we're going to be rising to the top because we didn't have the same level of devastation that other countries did. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So here's the map you see. So again, here's pre-World War I. You see Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire down here. Now look at afterwards. You see Poland's created. Czechoslovakia is created. Austria-Hungary now separated. So you see how the map is going to change. And then finally, this is going to be it for today. I'm sorry, I have 10 more seconds for this thing to record, so I apologize. But ultimately, to make sure you guys understand this too in terms of the impact of the tree.